Thank you. Okay. Mine is not working anymore. I'd like to begin by giving you a brief explanation of what the ministry is responsible of, because I think it would be quite normal for somebody to think right now, why is somebody working for a diplomatic entity coming to present to a forum like this about infrastructure? And the first thing I would say is that we have a specific ministry in Mexico, which is the Ministry of Communications and Transportation, who is the expert technical in infrastructure development within the country. However, and the main focus of my presentation today, all the binational or international infrastructure connections and interconnectivity between our countries is conducted through what we know as the binational group on border and bridge crossings. And that is a group that is presided by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and by me personally. So with this in mind, and with some of the programs that we have been working, I will try to give you a very quick outline of which are the main efforts that we're conducting right now. And first thing I would want to say is that it's no news for anybody that since the current administration, the President of Mexico has been very emphatic on the fact that this would be a presidential term in which infrastructure in the country would be fortified, and it would be used as a stepping stone for the development of the economic competitiveness, not only of the country, but of the full of North America. One statement that I would like to set clear here is that our geographical proximity is the only advantage that we will permanently share, all three countries. And therefore, the development of a world-class infrastructure with a binational scope that includes highways, railways, ports, and seaports is essential to enable timely and efficient supply to producers and consumers. All the other equations around us will be continuously changing. However, geographical proximity will be the only one that will be there today and 200 years from today. The increasing saturation of our ports of entry and our border is by no doubt representing a challenge. And this is something we must overcome through the modernization and expansion of our existing infrastructure and the construction of modern ones with an intensive use of technology. An important stat that you should know is that the current capacity of ports of entry, if it were not increased, and if the current demand growth would continue to grow at that rate, 85% of our ports of entry would be completely saturated by 2014, which is 3 years away from now. In this regard, proper U.S. and Mexico agencies are working very closely, and we have coordinated action plans in order to increase the capacity of our borders, roads, to efficiently address traffic flows. This is something that you don't need to get into too much. It's just a graphic that I stole from my friends from the Ministry of Communications and Transportation. And basically what it shows is where the main corridor, the thicker the line, of course, the thicker the volume of traffic moving. This is cargo traffic, of course, moving across the country. And basically what you can see is that we have several main corridors that run up north, and that gives us clearly identified areas in which we should be focusing on fortifying our border crossings. Since the signing of the NAFTA agreement, and my colleague from Canada already went through this, so I won't put too much time into this, but commerce has tripled between our countries. The efficient and secure movement of passengers and freight between Mexico and the United States is therefore fundamental for the development of both nations. I would say all three nations here. Those numbers, I don't need to go into them. Everybody knows that. What not everybody knows is that 70% of the value of the trade between Mexico and the U.S. is conducted by truck. I think the regular U.S. and Mexico citizen who is not living in the border will traditionally think that commerce between our countries is being conducted by plane, by ship, by other means of transportation. No, 70% of that volume of commerce is conducted by land, by trucks crossing our borders. 8.4% additional is conducted by rail, which takes us to close to 80% of the commercial relation between our two countries is conducted precisely by land. Almost 4% by rail and 16.4% by ship, and the remaining 4% is by any other means of transportation. Now, my colleague from Canada already spoke about the importance of the movement of people from one country to the other, and 98% of this movement is also conducted by land, meaning only 2% is moving by plane. In 2010, nearly 170 million passengers moved from the U.S. to Mexico. 4.8 million trucks and close to 64 million passenger vehicles crossed the border from Mexico to the U.S. through 54 border crossings. A stat that you might be surprised to hear is that we have over 1 million daily legal crossings between Mexico and the U.S. Trade between Mexico and the U.S. has grown exponentially since the signing of NAFTA. However, border facilities have not grown accordingly. These are the main areas that I showed in the map just a while ago, and basically what I'm trying to show, or my friends from SET were trying to show here, are the main regions that we have clearly identified where we have to develop our main projects. This is the same graphic that I showed a while ago. However, this is by national traffic. And there you can see also clearly identified where the main points of contact between our countries are. This is no surprise. You can see how the eastern part of both countries is highly concentrated. Whoever remembers their geography classes, this map is showed straight. However, the world is actually tilted a little bit to the left. So north is actually something that goes more or less like this. So that's the natural geography of both countries, concentrates most of the flow of cargo on the western side. What have we done? The first thing that I would like everybody to know is that, surprisingly, after signing the NAFTA agreement, everybody would have expected that the development of connecting infrastructure between the two countries would have boomed. If we have the agreements in place, if we have the volume of traffic, of commercial traffic tripling, it's only reasonable that border infrastructure should be also tripling or doubling or whatever should be needed. It was a surprise for me 5 years ago when I took this position to learn that we were going over a decade without building any new border crossing between Mexico and the United States. In the meantime, we also had the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and I guess I don't have to explain to anybody here what happened to security measures at ports of entry. So actually, the capacity to process commercial traffic between both countries did not only not grow, but it was actually very significantly diminished. And there's, of course, in the 17 period after the signing of NAFTA, the signing of the NAFTA agreement, a very significant growth on the natural traffic volumes on both countries. Both are. I'm glad to say that in recent years, both countries have reached remarkable levels of understanding and cooperation in this sense, and we have a very good coordination relationship in order to strengthen our infrastructure and hence the competitiveness of the whole North American region. We have agreed on the importance of the borders as a region of opportunity and binational cooperation. We carry out efforts in order to strengthen the security and encourage commercial trade. Through the efforts conducted on the binational group on bridges and border crossings that I mentioned just a while ago, we were able to reach agreements to build 3 new border crossings at the beginning of this administration. You can imagine the challenges that lay when you have to establish a binational project that has to be fully agreed by 2 countries, 3 levels of government within each of the 3 countries. So we started building 3 years ago. For the first time in U.S.-Mexico history, 3 new border crossings were inaugurated last year. The Reynosa-McAllen and Soldues Bridge, which is in the border of Tamaulipas and Texas, that was inaugurated in January 2010. It's fully operating. All 3 are fully operational right now. San Luis Rio Colorado, San Luis 2, inaugurated in November 2010. This is in the Sonora-Arizona border. And Rio Bravo, Dona, Tamaulipas, Texas border, inaugurated in December 2010. What are our strategic goals? First, we have very clear that we have to modernize the existing infrastructure. This is a very difficult challenge because our infrastructure was constructed 40, 50, 60 years ago. It was constructed for current demands, not for future projected demands. It was either built in the center of the city or cities grew around the border crossings. We have no space to make them grow. We have no space to put the proper equipment. So we have to be very innovative here on what we are doing in those ports of entry. So we are conducting several reconfiguration projects of border crossings along our border. And of course, we are implementing the use of intensive technology through programs such as SentryFast, SIABE. For whoever is not aware of what these programs are, they're basically trusted traveler programs where passengers, regular passengers for the case of the Sentry, or companies and cargo for the FAST program are pre-vetted by both governments, so they get a specific credential for the vehicle, for the passenger, for the cargo, and when they get to the border, they have a specific dedicated lane where they have exclusive access to, so they are processed and have the time that the regular vehicle would be processed. Building new infrastructure, of course. By new, I mean completely new bridges, situated, of course, outside the cities with huge land reserves and with the high use of technology. Also the construction of bypasses and road accesses. As I mentioned a while ago, our border cities are suffering a lot of the congestion from the wait lines. Sometimes we have 3-4 mile wait lines that you can imagine what that does to a city. It basically splits it in 2. If we're talking rail, we have a train getting to the border being screened. The different wagons are being screened, so basically the train stops at the border, splits some of our border cities in 2 for an hour, half an hour while the inspections are being conducted. Intermodal integration, which my colleague from Virginia already went thoroughly through. Creation of intermodal facilities, construction of rail bridges and bypasses, implementation of massive passenger transport systems or BRTs in border cities. So I won't stop in this. This is just a graphic that I took that identifies the main corridors, rail, roads, the main ports in Mexico. And what I like about this, I did not do this, I stole it from my friends from SET, but what I like about this is these are all the new roads that are being built during the current administration in Mexico, so I think it's very graphic. 16,000 new kilometers are being built during this administration. This basically identifies what is being done. It might be a completely new road. It might be that it's being widened from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, or from 4 lanes to 6 lanes, but it's all new infrastructure. I won't bore you a lot with this, but I just want to go through some exemplary cases of the reconfiguration or modernization projects that we're doing across the border. So in the San Diego-Tijuana border, we have the busiest port of entry for passenger vehicles in the world. Every day it serves over 50,000 northbound vehicles and 25,000 northbound pedestrians. That's over 250,000 people crossing every single day. This port of entry is undergoing a major expansion and modernization on both sides of the border. We are ready to begin operations, not operations, sorry, this is a mistake from my office, construction of the new facilities by the end of 2012. We are still working on a binational calendar. There's some delays on the U.S. side regarding financing, and so we're still working on when we could begin this. We, of course, want to begin before 2012 because, as you know, there will be a change of presidential administration in the Mexican government. This is just a very quick graphic to show you more or less what it is. What we have here is that we have imposed over a current satellite picture what the port would look like. I know whoever has not been involved with this before sees where the feet and the head are. So this is the border. This is the U.S. This is Mexico. This is Tijuana. This is, it's actually called San Isidro, but San Diego for practical reasons. And this is what we're talking about when I speak of the challenges we have, because ports are inserted completely inside our cities. So this is the existing port that we have currently. If you would see how it works right now, you could split it more or less here, and all southbound traffic runs this way. I was surprised when I went on the border tour yesterday that I was on I-5, which is actually this one right here. The very same interstate runs all the way down to Tijuana. So this is I-5 where it ends, and this is southbound. This is northbound. So current traffic comes along here and returns this way. This was an old commercial port that was closed decades ago. So what we're doing right now is that it will be an only passenger port of entry. We are knocking down all of this. We're building it completely new, and all this volume will be for northbound traffic with 36 double-stacked booths. I don't know if everybody here is aware of what that is. Instead of having one booth with one CBP officer, you have 2 booths, one standing just behind the other one. It does not double the capacity because the car on the back still has to wait if the car in front has not left yet, but it does increase your capacity on 45%. So we will have 36 double booth lanes just going northbound, and then we will build all this project on the Mexican side to address southbound traffic through a connection that the U.S. is building. So that's just an example, so you know more or less what we're doing. This is a very innovative concept that we're working on. We have conducted extensive research and have identified no other project like this in the world. And what we're basically doing is that we are connecting the Tijuana airport, which is an international airport, to the San Diego city, so it can be used by both countries. The San Diego airport is only a regional airport. It has no space for the landing strips that are required for an international airport. So there was a project going on for, I think, the last 20 years between both countries trying to establish a binational airport. That seemed too complicated, so we recently just tried to make it simpler. And what we are doing right here is, here you can see the airport. You can actually see the planes here. This is the Tijuana airport. This is the international frontier, and this is actually the U.S. So what we are doing is that we're building a facility that will look very much like an airport. Whoever lives in San Diego, Los Angeles, or Orange County, or wherever, they will travel down. They will have a parking spot, a parking place. They will park their car or get in taxi to this place. Basically, go into the facility. It will have hotels, restaurants, everything that you are used to having in an airport. You will go through customs on the U.S. side. You will go up the stairs, the word, I forgot the word, doesn't matter. Just go through the hallway as you are used to, and while you're walking, you won't even notice, and you'll be in Mexican territory. A Mexican official will meet you in migration. On the Mexican side, you will go through customs, get to your boarding gate, board your plane. Who can use this? Only airline ticketed passengers for the 24 hours before or after. What does that mean? If I'm attending a meeting in San Diego, I will get my plane in Mexico City, land in our Tijuana airport, cross, show my boarding pass for that day, cross, get into the U.S. facility, attend my meeting 20 miles north in San Diego, maybe return that same night, show my ticket, or stay the night in San Diego, return next morning, show my boarding pass, get the plane, go back to Mexico City. The Nogales 3 Mariposa bridge is the most important bridge between Mexico and U.S. for fresh produce. An important stat that you might be interested on is that 40% of all U.S. imports of fresh produce for the U.S. market come through this port of entry during the winter. So in 3 or 4 months, 40% of the volume that's being consumed of the imports from the U.S. is going through one port. You can imagine what that does to one of the ports. So we have a very important project of renovation on this port, and I won't bore you with the details. I'll just tell you that we have already began construction in both sides of the border, and we will be ready by the end of November. We have the Guadalupe Tornillo Bridge, which is one of the experiences that we are very well aware that we can't continue to saturate our border cities. So we're taking the bridge 50 kilometers to the east of the current existing port. The current existing port would be converted into a vehicle-only bridge, and we're building a completely new bridge, which will be the U.S. actually already started construction. We will be starting in December, and we will both finish by April 2013. This is a very interesting story. It's no surprise for anybody that after the information I gave you, we have to be focusing on new approaches, and having 80% of the volume of traffic between Mexico and the U.S. run through the border actually on trucks doesn't seem like the best idea, especially when we know the challenges that both countries have been facing for the last 15 years regarding the trucking issue. And for whoever is not aware of what happens is that Mexican trucks carrying products arrive to the border, and they are only allowed to travel within the 25 border miles, and they have to unload there and get a new company to take that volume of commerce to whatever final destination it has in the U.S. So this is, of course, not too helpful for the congestion at the border. We believe that we should be working on other issues, and rail seems to be one of the natural ideas we should be working on. However, it's been a century since Porfirio Diaz did all the rail projects in Mexico that there has been no development of rail infrastructure in Mexico. And of course, no development of rail infrastructure, binational rail infrastructure in U.S. and Mexico. So what we have been working on is on the connection of a new rail between Mexico and the U.S. And I'm very glad to announce to you that we started construction in December 2010 and Mexico in May 2011. The construction will end of both countries during the third semester of 2012. You can see the pictures there. This is actually what you call the Rio Grande, what we call the Rio Bravo, and this is actually the columns where the international bridge will be connecting. Now, 21st century border. We cannot speak only about infrastructure. You have to have several measures around it for this to work properly. So we have a shared interest in creating a border that promotes economic competitiveness for the whole of North America, enhancing regional security through safe, efficient, rapid, and lawful movements of goods and people. Recognizing the value and the potential of collaborative administration of the common border, both presidents signed the Declaration for the 21st Century Border on May 2012. What is this? Well, we are carrying out coordinated efforts to strengthen cooperation by, one, enhancing economic competitiveness by expediting lawful trade while preventing the transit of illegal merchandise, facilitating lawful travel and enhancing secure flows of goods and people, disrupting and dismantling transnational criminal organizations and punishing their members and supporters, and making the communities in border states partners in efforts to protect public safety by integrating law enforcement efforts with social assistance, community outreach, and responsiveness to citizen concerns. Both governments have agreed and established a binational framework and a structure to work on the implementation of this, a binational action plan. It's composed of 34 actions, specific actions that both countries are carrying out, which comprises the main initiatives regarding the modernization of our common border. Throughout this year, agencies for both countries have held several bilateral meetings, and internal coordination or work between our federal agencies in both countries is something that we're having continuously. I took some samples. This is not the full of the program. I just want to take some examples so that you would know more or less what we're working on. Improving binational coordination in planning, financing, the permitting, designing, building, and operating ports of entry. The results, you've seen them. The use of shared programs, enhanced information sharing, improved technology, and other risk management strategies. Creating of protocols to ensure full binational coordination before, during, and after emergency shutdowns. Test concepts for pre-clearance, pre-screening, and pre-inspection of goods and people and products. Reduce congestions and delays in border traffic entering both Mexico and the U.S. Enhance law enforcement cooperation, including the collection, analysis, and information sharing. Implement coordinated binational stakeholder interaction mechanisms. We have three main pillars: infrastructure, security, and trade facilitation and competitiveness. We have three binational groups comprised of all the relevant agencies working in each side of the border. And I am in charge of the infrastructure one, so I just wanted to sample with this one. I won't bore you with the other two, but sample with this one more or less what we're talking about. I won't go into the detail of each action item, but what are we doing? We have three actions regarding border master planning processes along the border. What is a border master plan? Simple. Infrastructure projects are always competing against each other. When you translate that to the local relevance, well, for a municipality, there's no more important project than the project in its municipality. When you talk to a state, however, the focus changes a little bit. They will have a different perspective of which are the most important projects in their state. When we join together all the border states and we talk federally, then we have a very different view. So how do we work this out? How do we reach an agreement on which are the most important projects that we should be developing on the border? Now, when you add up the equation that you have another country that has to build the other half of the bridge, it comes a little bit complicated. So we do it binationally at the three levels of government. We work together. We conduct several meetings, and we conduct a process that basically what it does is that we clearly define which should be the criteria to evaluate which are the most important projects. Once we agree on that, the machine does its work. Let us know which are the most important projects we should be working on. No debate. 6, construction or expansions of ports of entry. We already went through that. Expansion of secure and efficient trusted traveler and trusted shipper programs, such as global entry, Sentry, and FAST. Reducing border wait times and improving intelligent transportation at the border. I'm glad to announce that as of today, we started working on this on January this year. As of today, nearly 30% of the action items have been fully completed. The ongoing work and current progress on the remaining actions will allow us to complete nearly 60% of this action plan by next December. And of course, we are already working on the action items that will substitute the actions that we have fully completed. And with this I finished. I would just like to make some final remarks. First is that we have very clear that accomplishing a comprehensive modernization of the border is a stepping stone for the enhancement of the North American regional competitiveness. I started by saying, and will finish by saying, that, sorry, I'm skipping one. Our ultimate goal is secure flows of goods and people between our countries while expediting legitimate commerce and travel and reducing the duration and the variability of wait times. What do I mean by variability? Well, it's not the same when you try to cross the border at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to job, or at 2 o'clock, or at 6, than if you try to cross the border at 2 o'clock in the morning, or at 12 o'clock at noon. However, when you go into the peak hours, people and trucks are waiting 2 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours. That's of course not helpful for our economies. And now I'll get back to this one. I started by saying it, I'll end by saying it. Our geographical proximity is the only advantage that we will share permanently. We have to take advantage of it. The support and the involvement of the United States and Mexico's Congress will continue to be a key element. It has been, and it will continue to be a key element for the success of these efforts. Coordinated work between legislative and executive branches of both countries is critical to achieve our goals. So next time you see a border crossing issue in your desk, please vote favorably. Thank you.